Alternatives Executive Director since 2018. In Bessie's short yet transformative time with Alternatives, there's so much to celebrate. The organization is now proudly majority BIPOC, from our staff all the way to our board. Not only has she kept the organization financially stable, making no layoffs in the midst of a global pandemic, she's also managed to pivot our programs and services to be offered virtually. Under her leadership, this past year alone, we managed to fundraise and distribute $30,000 from the Family Relief Fund, assemble a remote learning pod at our Southside site, and build a racial equity plan to be shared out with other nonprofit organizations in 2021. It goes without saying that Bessie has been an extraordinary leader for Alternatives, and it's leadership like hers that brings me refreshing optimism for the future of Chicago. Without further ado, here's Bessie.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you everybody for coming here tonight. I'm Bessie Alcantara. I am the Executive Director. Jeff, you did great with my last name. So I want to start off by saying that I feel very privileged to be here tonight and to talk to all of you about Alternatives on our 50th anniversary. 2 years ago, as Jeff mentioned, I came on board in 2018. I was asked to serve and lead Alternatives. And as I got to know the organization, I don't feel like I could have found a better professional home. Every day, our team, our young people, they keep me hopeful for the future. And especially today, you know, the world is particularly challenging, but our history shows that this is why we're here. We were founded in 1971 as a substance abuse prevention program against a backdrop of a host of social issues similar to today. Through time, we have challenged the status quo, stayed responsive to the community, and let our youth lead the charge. I can say a ton about it, but I think that the story is better told through the words of one of our former participants who we recently were able to reconnect with. I would like to introduce you to Dr. Bill Reagan. She is a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. She's an elected fellow of 5 professional associations, a Fulbright Senior Specialist Scholar, and the past editor of the Academy of Management Review. She was recently recognized in Stanford University's top 2% of scientists in the world. Please help me welcome Dr. Bell.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, hello, everyone. And wow, it's just great to be here. And thank you, Monica, and thank you, Bessie. I have to say this was serendipitous. I was talking to some friends about life when I was an adolescent and telling them about Alternatives and what the agency meant to me as a 15-year-old. And then I thought, you know, I wonder if they're still around. So, you know, I went to Google, asked Dr. Google, I said, Google, tell me. And up pops the page. And here it is, the 50th anniversary. You know, the momentary shock, like 50 years, really gone by that quickly. So I reached out and said, hey, I'd like to come and make a donation. And let me tell you what this agency did for me. And they said, can you come and speak? And I thought, of course, I would love to. So I just want to share with you, you know, we're celebrating this agency being here for 50 years. You know, let that sink in. So just to let you know a little bit about what it was like 50 years ago and what it did for me. So I came through the doors of Alternatives. I was 15 years old. I was a junior at Mather High School. And I gotta say that I was not exactly with the right crowd, so to speak. I mean, a lot of the kids I was with were just doing a lot of drugs. They were not headed in the right direction. And, you know, my parents, I wasn't talking to them. I was just kind of in a really bad place. But really, adolescence is all about that. I mean, adolescence is such a tenuous time. And I think when we think about and recall our experience as adolescents, you know, you're scared. You're an adult one day, a kid the next. You're grappling with your identity, your gender identity. Who am I? What can I be? Who can I become? Peer acceptance is huge. You know, you can't go to your parents for social support anymore because what do they know? And it's scary. But it's also a crossroads. And it's a crossroads in your life. And that's why Alternatives is so important. because they meet youth at the crossroads of their life. And, you know, I was a young woman and I was thinking, what can I do? And this was 1971. Okay. So there's still so many gender role stereotypes about what you can and can't do. But I thought I wasn't fit enough. I wasn't sexy enough. I didn't think I was smart enough, although I was super smart. I still didn't, I questioned it. So I walk in the door at Peterson Avenue, it's Peterson and Rockwell, and the building is still there. And I'm greeted with the staff who like essentially said to me, you're not a kid, you're a young adult. The philosophy at Alternatives, and the older I get and the more I think about it, the more profound it really is. Because the whole word alternatives is we were giving you an alternative to that point to substance abuse and use. But really, as an adolescent, you know, people do drugs because, you know, you want to kind of escape from reality because the reality is not so great. So Alternatives was essentially saying, if we make your reality better, if we make your life better, you know, you won't feel driven to use drugs to kind of escape your life. You'll be in it and you'll get through it. So they empowered me. And, you know, empowerment's a word we use a lot, but this, and I didn't even know that word back then, but that's what they did. They believed in me so I could believe in myself, because I wasn't believing in myself at that point. And they said, okay, you know, you're a junior staff member. So here I am at 15 and I'm running a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week crisis intervention hotline. Okay. You know, I'm picking the people and all peers, you know, all high school young adults, training them, making sure that there were two responsible staff members who were there, you know, in terms of the peers, again, all volunteer for 24/7. And you think about that now in terms of the responsibility, but I rose to the occasion. And by rising to that occasion, I was able to really see and get a sense of what I could do. They had me do peer counseling and consciousness raising groups, and we did crisis interventions at concerts, and I gave talks to audiences. I was on TV. I mean, I just had learned my public speaking skills. I mean, this is 15 years old. You're a sophomore in high school, and you think about what this meant. And I think now about who staffed Alternatives. You know, who are these people who staffed it? Now we look at them now and we go, well, they're hippies, okay? And they were all hippies, okay? But everyone had long hair, and now, you know, I do too with COVID and not being able to get into a salon in forever. But they were hippies, and what that meant was that they believed in justice. They believed in identity, in finding yourself, and accepting others, and it was all about social justice. The Vietnam War was going on. And you know, and it was right before Nixon got bumped out of office, Kent State, the Chicago Seed, okay? So it was all about social justice. And it was also about feminism. So the second wave of feminism was hitting in a big time. And the women who worked there, the staff members who worked there, were feminists. And for me as a young woman, I became a feminist too. And by feminist, it was like that time, it was like just another level of empowerment in terms of saying, I am equal to men. And I watched these women who were staff members, because I was a junior staff member, I was on salary, you know, interacting with male peers in an organization. And they weren't taking any kind of crap from the guys. I mean, they were just saying, wait a second, women are not chicks, we're calling you on it. And that really raised my awareness about what it can be in the workplace, in social settings, in terms of the feminist ideology. We had consciousness raising groups for women. The book, Our Bodies, Ourselves, was our Bible. And the other thing that was really amazing about Alternatives at this time was that I would say, at least at the Uptown Outpost and other outposts, about a quarter of the staff were out. They were gay, they were out. And this was 1971. 1971, the APA, American Psychological Association, still classified, quote unquote, homosexuality as a mental illness. So here you are having young people coming in, seeing staff members who are out. And then we had support groups for queer youth. Of course, we didn't call them queer at that time, we just called them gay, but it was like we had support groups. So it was great for the youth, and it was great for everyone, for all of the young adults who were grappling with their gender identity and thinking, who am I and what am I, to kind of see this kind of acceptance. And I'm sure that this prevented a number of suicides in the process. So, you know, that was really phenomenal in terms of the role modeling and the exposure and the acceptance that happened. But that was the kind of place, and that was the foundation of alternatives. And, you know, and now I'm an organizational psychologist, an industrial organizational psychologist, and I know that the foundation of any organization, when you look at an organization's culture, you have to look at its roots and you have to look at its history. So the history of this agency is so special because it was founded on the social justice, it was founded on the women's movement, it was founded on the peace movement, and it was founded on the sense of empowerment. So then what happened to me? Okay, so, you know, I'm just growing and blossoming in this agency. And before that, I didn't even think I was going to go to college. I didn't really have the financial resources to go. It wasn't on my radar. And Ellen Afterman, who was the director at that time, said, Belle, you're going to college. I'm like, how do I do this? She goes, I'll help you through it. And she did. So I got a scholarship and I went to Southern Illinois University, SIU. Go Salukis. So I got a job there in women's programs. And what did I do? I ran consciousness raising groups because I had had that work experience at Alternatives as an adolescent. And then I became the president of the Feminist Action Coalition and, you know, continued on my feminist journey. Received my MSW from the Jane Addams College of Social Work. And then I went for a PhD in industrial organizational psychology. And what did I study? Women in leadership, gender and leadership. And this was back in 1987. And then in the 90s, I studied LGBTQ in the workplace and did research on sexual orientation and discrimination at work. And now I'm doing research on allyship and racial justice in the workplace. And I teach courses on diversity, and I have for the past 20 years at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and before that at Marquette University in Milwaukee, to business majors, right? To business majors, and they really need it. And this is so, but none of this would have been possible without alternatives, none of it, because at my crossroads, they were there. And Alternatives has lasted 50 years because it's a remarkable organization that does remarkable things for young people. Funding was an issue 50 years ago. It's still an issue today. And I hope that everyone reaches deep to help support this agency. I know I did, I will. We need to give them the support that they need to do the work that they do. So where would my path have been if not Alternatives? Well, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. They shaped my values and they shaped my beliefs and they shaped my identity. And they were at my crossroads and they were there when I needed them the most. And for that, I'm forever grateful. So thank you, Alternatives.
I don't even know what to add after that. Thank you, Dr. Bell. That was great. Thank you for sharing your story. So I want to pose a question for everybody. As you know, you think about what she just said, who has had an impact on your life and how have they made a difference? And if you feel open to sharing, please drop it on the chat so we can hear more of people's stories. I think one of the things it was interesting when we reconnected with her because she was giving us all this background against what was happening in 1971, which was fascinating. And I think one of the things that's evident as we go through our timeline is how we've stayed responsive to the current needs of Chicago's youth. And so you'll see programs come up and other ones crop up and take their place. And it's all because the young people were telling us what it is that they needed at that time. And so what started off as a gathering space with coffee, music, a photography darkroom, eventually evolved to more outward bound activities, including a drug hotline and employment program. And then when we got to the 80s, we had behavioral health and collaborative prevention services. In the 90s, like YouthNet, EdgeUp, Girl World. In '96, we started our first restorative justice peer jury at Senn High School, and we'll talk a little bit more about restorative justice later in the program. And in 2000, we purchased the building that we're currently at in Uptown, and began Connect Force, a hip hop program, and a community tech center. In 2005, we started providing behavioral health services in the school. And we also had that mosaic that you see at the front of our building and in our backgrounds right now today. And one of the things Dr. Bell said is she talked quite a bit about the staff and how helpful they were. And we've come a long way thanks to the leadership and devotion of alternative staff, the community members, and most importantly, the youth participants. I don't think there's anything I can say to do it justice. The impact speaks for itself. We do have a video, so we can show you some of those stories.
Absolutely. I'll get our screen share.
There's this huge imbalance in resources between wealthier communities and higher poverty communities. And what we were able to do during that time was to generate what I think were some really innovative and creative approaches to serving and engaging young people in communities in out-of-school spaces. And so I can name some of those, Girl World, for example, or Science Seekers, or Model UN. We just did a number of, I think, really interesting programs that brought young people together through their organizations, their independent organizations, into collaborative spaces with other young people from the community in the kinds of programs that you just wouldn't get in schools, and the kinds of programs that you wouldn't really get if individual organizations were trying to do that on their own. And so the impact of kind of broadening the horizons of young people and seeing how they began to see themselves in a new light and see the world in a new light, it felt to me like there was so much transformation going on for them through participation in those kinds of programs.
When I was first at Alternatives, I remember like walking in exactly to this space actually, and I would like walk through those doors over there, and it was like hip hop all around. So this was like the place to come to for hip hop in Chicago. And a lot of people, and even I think all over the world, folks would come here to have breakdancing battles, MC battles. There's a graffiti battles happening here. Definitely for my generation, when folks think about alternatives, they think about Connect Force, and they think about this exact space actually that was like the mecca for them in terms of their hip hop journey.
Those young stars of tomorrow get to be mentored by professional dancers who loan their time to get these kids to break dance like the pros. This is the Alternatives After School program, where no one wants to miss out on an opportunity to be mentored by professional dancers. This is where the teacher does a move, and then it's up to the student to follow.
At first it was kind of scary because I'm not really good at talking to people through a screen. I'm more like face-to-face conversations, but the people at Alternatives made me feel very welcomed in their group. Most of my friends are near my age, most of my friends I go to school with, so attending Alternatives, being with kids from like 14 to 17, it was very like drastic to me because I don't really have friends that age, and most of my friends are like African American, so now I have friends who are Asian, East Asian, South Asian, and yeah, it was a nice experience.
I experienced the school to prison pipeline, right? Like the attending a CPS high school and getting arrested in schools, and then eventually getting pushed out, and even like having to deal through expulsion hearings and all of that. And for me, like something that looks so simple is like a basic conversation of like, how are you doing, what do you actually need, could have put me on a completely different path. So my hope for young people who come through Alternatives is that they can create a world that they want to see, to have the type of impact, the positive impact that they want to have in the world, and really to have it be possible that beyond surviving, you can actually thrive, transform yourself, and transform the world around you.
Okay. What you saw right there was a quick flash of our new mission statement. We spent the past year doing some strategic planning, and from there came up, we took feedback from our partners, our funders, our different stakeholders, community members, staff, and youth, and came up with our new mission, vision, and values, which we would like to share with you right now. We inspire young people to create a just future through practices that heal individuals, restore communities, and transform systems. I think as you hear stories today, you can see how this fits what we do. Our new vision: young people free from oppression, free in their identities, and free to pursue their wildest ambitions. And then finally, our values: collaboration, agility, accountability, equity, and liberation. There are lengthy descriptions on here. They will also be on our website if you want to read more about them. But what I'm going to do right now is talk a little bit about how they're showing up in our work today. So I think for me, the mission, vision, values hits particularly, and feel free to drop comments about anything we're reading them in real time. But for me, reflecting on this mission, vision, and values is extremely impactful after the year that we've had. After, once the pandemic hit and we had to close down, there were a lot of things that came up. Black and brown were and still are dying at faster rates than white people, particularly in Chicago, with Black and brown people holding essential jobs at lower wages. The financial implications were greater, and then the learning gap increased. We already knew the disparities that existed in the communities that we work with in comparison to more affluent communities, but now our kids didn't have access to resources to allow them to do their remote learning. And, we had to do what our history taught us best, and that's to stay responsive and agile. Most of our services went virtually fairly quickly, and I really have to commend our staff for that. Behavioral health moved into telehealth and doing therapy with our young people. A lot of our young people were impacted in different ways by COVID, including losing loved ones. Our RJ services, Restorative Justice, started providing online classroom support for teachers that had to quickly adapt their lessons to online learning. And our crisis response team continued to provide services in person to ensure that our young people had stable housing. We also, Jeff mentioned this, created an employee relief fund that provided over $30,000 in financial support to our families for rent, basic needs, technology, whatever came up for them. All the while, our staff was experiencing their own stress and financial situations, remote learning for their children, and their mental health. Recognizing that the majority of our staff does come from the communities that we serve, we had to also stay responsive to them. And I'm happy to say that we were able to keep our staff employed at 100% of their salaries. And we were able to establish an emergency fund for any needs that came up for them. As we were trying to respond to this, the uprisings happened. And, the culmination of just hundreds of years of dehumanizing and murder of Black people, I think forced all of the US to really have hard conversations about how we got to this point. And we were not exempt from that. And we had to examine our own complicity as an organization and, hold ourselves accountable, as well as our partners. and anybody we interacted with. And so the question became like, what is our role? What do we challenge? What is the potential cost to us? But what is the cost to not speak out, right? I think that's the greater cost as we're seeing. And some of what came out of this is a very intense racial equity plan that we're also going to be releasing on our website in a couple of months, I think. But just to kind of point out some highlights from this racial equity plan is we were able to raise our bottom wage to a livable wage of $40,500. So as an organization, that is much higher than the industry standard, under our value of making sure that our staff can live off of, if you're working full-time, you should be able to not have to choose between food or any other, things that come up for you. We've adjusted all of our salaries accordingly. Another thing that came from this is we were able to implement a 10-week paid parental leave for our families so that they can spend the time with their loved ones and not have to, again, choose between eating and taking care of their child. We want to be an organization that practices what we see from what we would want to see from everybody else and how we treat people. Another thing is that you'll notice on our website, we've also expanded our advocacy platform to include fair tax and defund police. We even spent some time presenting to local school councils on why they should remove police from their schools and, presenting restorative justice as the alternative. So we're 50 years in and it feels like we're just getting started. There's still a lot of work to be done. So I want to talk a little bit about our work. The first thing I want to highlight is that we just recently received city and state grants to expand our work on the South Side. And so our reach is getting greater. I would like to start with restorative justice. When I first came on board, one of the things that appealed to me about alternatives is that we were working with the systems that impact our young people. And what I mean by that is that oftentimes we look at our young people as just this, if you just change your behavior as an individual, then everything will be okay. And we don't take into account all the different things that set them up for failure. And I always just think about like just a basic school day, especially as a person who has a hard time sitting still. I struggled and got consistently in trouble for just not being able to sit still, right? As adults, we have a hard time doing it. And then we expect kids to do it for however long the school day is. And so I thought it was really unique from what I'd seen in 10 years of me being in the field that we addressed both the individual and the system. And so with restorative justice, I'll start by saying that restorative justice is an approach to how we think about addressing problematic behavior. The definition, if you look at it online, it says criminal behavior specifically. But our approach is that instead of punishing people for harm, we focus on accountability, repair, and healing for all parties involved in the harm. And this is one of the things that makes us unique. And so I want to start by telling you guys a little bit about our coaching model, which is what I was referencing earlier. We work with schools to coach their administrators, look at their policies and their practices to help them become a more restorative environment and less punitive. We have shown that schools that participate in this program have lower rates of suspension and misconducts with our young people. We have recently established a partner with the University of Chicago Crime Lab to evaluate our services so that we can share our best practices with anybody who would like to learn from them. And then we have our Peace Ambassador program where we take young people who are living in the homeless shelters and we train them on how to be restorative justice practitioners, which reaches two things for us. One is that it creates a pipeline for RJ practitioners, but also they help us address punitive practices within the shelters. Oftentimes the young person can get kicked out for, a couple of infractions and then they have nowhere to go. And this is where they come in. And then finally, we have under RJ, our crisis team. These are our first responders when our when young people get locked out of their home for any reason, they respond 24/7 and help them find immediate stable housing. We also offer our behavioral health services. We are currently providing group and individual counseling, and we also have prevention specialists who do substance use education. We recently expanded to do capacity building on this side. And so we looked at our RJ work and said, how do we take what we've learned works here and implement it on the BH side so that we can have a systems level approach as well here. And what we came up with is the SEEIT program, which stands for Systemic Evaluation, Enhancement, and Institutional Training Program. And so what we do there is that we provide an evaluation of the school and assess a couple of different things. One is we look for young people that may show issues with mental health before their behavior externalizes. And so trying to catch that early before it becomes a referral because they've done something that got them into trouble. And we also look at their practices and how their teachers are trained to help teachers recognize trauma within the classroom. And then most importantly, as we look to the future, is the youth leadership, the work that we do. It's designed to develop the leadership and political analysis skills of our young people. I think you heard a little, Dr. Bell touched on that a little bit when she talked about being 15 and running the crisis line. For us today, it looks like in the form of our Grow World Justice, Restorative Justice Institute, and Youth Advisory Committee. I am going to turn it over. This is just a brief description of our services because of what I really wanted to spend the time doing is letting a current young person that works with us talk about the work that he does. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ana to introduce him.
So, hi, I'm Ana Mercado. I'm the Director of Restorative Justice. And it is my honor to introduce a very talented member of our Restorative Justice team. So I've been at Alternatives 7 years. I think that he's been a participant with us for even longer than that. And now he gets to impact the lives of other young people through being a peace ambassador. And so he's actually a great example of the kinds of leadership that we want to create in the world. And so without further ado, this is Joseph McCrae.
Hello, my name is Joseph McCrae. I'm a peace and with Alternatives. I've been involved with Alternatives since 2013, when my grandma, she signed me up for summer camp. And at first, like, I wasn't really excited to go to camp, but I was like, I'm gonna do it for her. I end up going. I end up really, really enjoying it because it was just a wonderful and fun experience. And then, like, after summer camp, I stayed in touch, like, with Alternatives and, like, the organization. And I got involved with this program called Urban Arts. And that was a program where, like, they had arts programs. It was a DJ program. But the most exciting thing for me was when I got to have my first circle. And at first, I thought it was weird sitting in a circle and talking about, like, your problems in front of, like, complete strangers. But I ended up doing it. I ended up liking the circle. I started crying, and I didn't expect to cry during this experience, but I felt like it was a good thing because it taught me how to be myself. It taught me how to be myself and, like, express myself more. And the good thing about Alternatives is that, like, when we do these type of talking circles, it can be very vulnerable at times, and you're doing it in front of, like, my first circle was in front of complete strangers. I didn't know them from, I didn't know them. And for all of us, like, to be so vulnerable in front of each other is just a beautiful thing. Um, After Urban Arts like ended, I kept staying in touch with alternatives, and I ended up signing up for this program with them through One Summer Chicago. It was a program. It was a public art program. So in that like summer program, I took pictures of like the public art in Uptown. And the great thing about me doing a program in Uptown was because like I went to Uplift and a high school in Uptown. I went there all 4 years, but I never really got a chance to actually see the neighborhood and the beautiful things that it brings. So when I joined that program, it showed me like more about like the neighborhood itself, and I enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. And then fast forward, summer 2019, I went back to alternatives and I signed up for this program called the RJ Institute. And it's a 6-week program where youth from all different walks of life, we come together and we learn about restorative justice and like all the aspects of it. One of the main that I feel like is, very beautiful is the talking circles. You really get a chance to get to know people, and you get to make friends that you still stay in touch with. Like the people that I've done circles with, I'm still in touch with all of them, and it was just a groundbreaking experience for me, just to be able to be myself, like have somewhere to go where I could be myself without being judged for it. And I just think that's the beautiful thing about alternatives. Like you can come in, it don't matter what type of person you are, you can be yourself, and you don't have to worry about getting judged. Um, so after I finished the RJ Institute program, I got a chance to apply for the Peace Ambassador program. And what I do now as a Peace Ambassador, um, I I go into homeless youth service providers, and I facilitate circles with them, and I conduct this 10-week training and teach them all like the aspects and skills that they would need to be a peace ambassador or a circle keeper. Um, and if they complete the 10-week training fully, um, they can have an opportunity to um, apply for the Peace Ambassador program. And like the beautiful work that I do now, I do this program on Mondays. It's called Just Us, and it's about, I'll say, 7 participants, 7 young people, and we teach them about restorative justice as well. We facilitate, circles and other skills that they would need to learn um, if they wanted to be a circle keeper themselves. Um, I want to talk about one circle I did real quickly. Um, it was a circle because I facilitated this circle for the citywide RJ training. It was virtual, and I was with 4 people. I think I was with three professors and like 1 judge. And I don't remember exactly what the topic of the circle was about, but I remember like when I got done facilitating a circle for them, one of the participants said, um, I have hope for the future because of the circle you just performed. Um, he said, I have hope because of young people like you. And that really made me feel good. That really made me feel good because it showed that like I'm doing something right. And if I can be an outlet and a role model to the young people that are under me, then I feel like the work is worth it. But yeah, that's my story.
Uh-oh.
There we go. Thank you so much, Joseph, for sharing your experience with us.
Don't put them on the floor, okay?
Hang on 1 moment while we get everyone muted. All right. For those of you that don't know, I'm Monica George. I'm the Director of Development. To our attendees, we'll be getting to trivia questions next, so don't worry. But before then, I want to make sure that we pay tribute to those who help to support our work. And this work cannot continue without the partnership of our individual supporters. I do need to make a quick screen share again. Multitasking is always a challenge while you're also talking. There we go. Perfect. So anyway, as you'll see here, there is a link to donate, but I do want to share a story, if I might. Recently, I was talking to a friend of mine who was looking for ways to put her money where her mouth was, strategically and specifically in response to the Black Lives Matter uprisings of this past summer and the disproportionate impact of COVID on communities of color. And I was able to share that Alternative's Restorative Justice program is working to provide the alternative to policing in communities and in schools, and that our behavioral health program is providing accessible and trauma-informed therapeutic services to Black and Brown communities who are disproportionately impacted, not only by COVID, but by police violence as well. So this type of responsiveness and active approach to dismantling white supremacy and the community-centered approach to nonprofit services are what make me most proud to work for an organization like Alternatives. Now, as you've just seen, Alternatives has a lasting impact on the young people that we serve, as well as their families and communities. And so I'd like to ask now that you post in the chat, if you're comfortable, what does Alternatives mean to you? We would like to share these out in the next 10 minutes if you share with us. So please do share something that you're comfortable with. Today, we are looking to raise $50,000 in honor of our 50th anniversary. And while this may seem small for a fundraising event, it is so much more important to us that we spread the word about our work. So no matter what level you're comfortable donating at today, please commit to sharing our work with 5 of your friends. That would go such a very long way. I want to make sure we're not having any. Great. So this event is simultaneously also a fundraiser, because more than anything, we want to reconnect and meet virtually with folks that we know stand with us and the work that we do. The more people that support our work, the more we can continue to offer flexible services capable of pivoting, say, in a global pandemic. Alternatives exist to serve our young people, and as long as they need us, we will be here. Whether that's for another 15 years, 50, 100, we will continue providing alternatives to punitive measures, alternatives to violence, alternatives to houselessness, alternatives to substance use, and alternatives to self-harm and policing. If you would like to join Alternatives in working towards a future where young people are free, consider donating at any level today and helping us to reach our goal. I do want to also make sure that at this time we share a special tribute to those who make this work possible. Here we are. Okay. Our staff, without whom we would not have been able to make it through this pandemic, they are very, very special to us, and we want to make sure that we give them a very special show of gratitude and thanks today.
Not just the staff that you see here on the screen today, but also the staff that have come before and that have made this possible for the young people who are now grown. This is the time that we must express our gratitude, not just for our staff, but for our board. Thank you to our board who represent us in community. Thank you for being our ambassadors. We are so proud to have you representing us. And then, of course, a special thank you to our funders and our supporters who have kept us afloat this past year and who have continued to make this work possible. Go back to this. And if I can read in the chat, if anyone can share is anything. Yeah. Miguel, would you be able to read out anything that was shared in the chat about what alternatives means to you? Are you able to?
Yes,
unmute?
I'm seeing a safe place for youth and community, a valuable and important resource for schools, positive impact, empowering young people. Oh, and all week long, I was waiting to go to Alternatives on Saturday. I couldn't wait to be there. My connection to the city of Chicago and the amazing youth of the city, groundbreaking work and collaboration, and RJ, a model for the city, highlighting the importance of creativity for real empowerment. Alternatives gave me the opportunity. Alternatives gave me the opportunity to get my life in order and gave me the tools to grow as a person. Instilling lifelong change in young people that makes a real life difference in their future. Alternatives is a space where I can work with other folks who are inspiring, who have shared values, and are looking to make important change. An influencer of systems and empowering individuals. An amazing space for our young people. A space for growth. A group of people working to restore the village and support our children.
Thank you, Miguel, for reading those out. We will come back to the giving page later on, and I think we're ready to move into some trivia time. So Adonis, if you'd be willing to take the lead, I'll
Awesome.
share the screen.
Thank you, everybody, for coming once again. I appreciate everyone for staying through. And now it's time for something we love to do here at Alternatives, is to play games and build community with each other. And so the way we'll be doing that today is by some fun trivia about alternatives. And so here are the rules for this fun activity. The first person to respond in the Zoom chat with the correct answer will be the winner for that question. Stay muted so you don't accidentally blurt out the answer, because I know I have that problem a lot. And Avery will reach out to you by private message to get your contact information so that we can send you the prize. And staff, please refrain from participating. Okay, and so, and some of the answers were definitely given out tonight. So if you had your listening ears on, you'll know these answers.
Adonis, should we show any of the prizes? I think Jess and Avery might have some that they can show.
Yeah, could you guys please model some of these beautiful prizes that we'll be giving out tonight? Could you model that beautiful white Alternatives hat circa 2021? Ooh, is that the winter swag? Okay, what else do we have? Oh, we got a nice alternatives neck warmer / mask combo. Keeps me warm all the time. Avery, what do you have for us?
I don't have any, Jess has them all.
Oh.
Have an umbrella there.
An alternatives umbrella for the rainy days or for the days you're feeling rained on. Oh, I got a message that popped up. I can't see that. And so those are some of the interesting and fun prizes we'll be giving out tonight. I hope you guys are ready for a fun game of trivia. Okay, and so with the first question will be, before alternatives moved in, what was the original purpose of our Northside office at 4730 North Sheridan in Uptown? Oh, that was quick. Sarah Lynn.
I think Mason was first.
Oh, Mason was first, theater. Good job. Okay, second question. What did Mason win for that first round, everybody?
We're gonna send a special surprise.
Okay, so it's a surprise. Okay, awesome. That's even better. What high school partnered with alternatives to introduce the first peer jury in CPS?
Karen got it. It's Sen. Does
Mm-hmm.
anyone know the year?
Bonus if you can tell us what year. I'll give you a hint. It was in the 90s. Oh, Karen. Yes, 1996. Awesome. Okay, for our third question, what was Alternative's first program? Bessie mentioned it earlier a few times. And so did our guest speaker, the doctor. Crisis Intervention Hotline, the circus. What else we got? It's close before you get. Substance abuse counseling. Ding, 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 ding. Yes, that was the first program. And that's from Judy. I don't think Judy can participate. That's the ODD. But thank you, Judy. Thank you. You definitely still win that prize. And so this is for our more recent followers on our social media. What year did we expand to our Southside location in Washington Park? What year? Oh, wrong question. Oh, so the question on the screen is, which of the following is not a current alternatives program? My apologies, everybody. I have some other questions to the side of me. A, Restorative Justice. B, Behavioral Health. C, Girl World. D, Arts and Design. E, Substance Use Prevention. We got Meredith. Any other guesses, people? Restorative robotics.
I think Aaron got it.
Oh, I didn't, yeah, what, did someone say? D?
They said art and design.
Awesome. Eric was the name. Thank you so much.
Aaron K.
So those are our awesome prizes, and that was our trivia. I appreciate everyone for participating, and I hope you guys have some fun as I did hosting. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Adonis. Avery will be reaching out to the winners to make sure we coordinate with them any information we need to send them their prizes.
Yeah, I reached out by direct message, so you should just be able to email or message me back your email so I can send you out your prize box.
Yay. Thanks, Avery. All right. And now, and but I do want to say a very special thank you to all of you who registered and who came out to support us this evening. And if you'd still like to donate, the donate link will be in the chat. And I do have a few people that I was able to see. Special thank you to Phil and Deb Barbara, Dr. Bill Reagan's. I also want to make sure that I thank Jeff, Kyle, thank you to Leela, Payal, Juliet, Katie, Anita, Mary, Izzy. Thank you for your support this evening. And yes, I can absolutely put the donation link out again. It doesn't seem to be clickable from the chat, which is really unfortunate. But hopefully it's simple enough that we can do it this way. And of course, feel free to reach out if anyone has any questions in the meantime. We're so excited to have celebrated our 50th anniversary with you. And we hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
It's over?
That's it.
You want to stick around?
You want to sit in circle? You want to circle up?
We're always sticking around afterward anyway. We're always, me and Adonis always sticking around.
Thanks, everybody.
We might as well dance.